getting in touch, and thank you very much for doing that, saying, my goodness, we're in fact, somebody said, good morning, terrorists.
Oh, my goodness.
And what they're saying is to believe, as so many I know of our viewers do, to believe that mass migration may be causing a problem, or at least a concern about the way we, who love the British culture and love being British, it makes you a sort of almost on a par with terrorists yourself.
It's crazy. Now, this all comes from the government's anti-radicalisation programme. It's deemed that concerns about mass immigration are now a terrorist ideology.
Yeah, it's Prevent, which has flagged cultural nationalism as a possible sign of radicalisation.
Not surprisingly, free speech advocates say this definition goes far too far, prompting fresh concern about the effectiveness of the Home Office body that's there to keep us all safe.
And yet politicians, even the likes of our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, have all raised concerns over mass immigration.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo.
So Keir Starmer there saying things which are now questioned by the Home Office. We're joined now by political commentator Theo Usherwood. Theo Usherwood, this seems ridiculous.
Yes, so this is a refresher awareness course, which is part of an annual training programme. And this is provided, and actually the report's followed up, it's also in the Times as well as the Telegraph today, and it's provided to police officers, health workers, teachers, those who work in the public sector. They go online, what do we need to look out for? That's the point of this course. And then when they are interacting with the public, they know the warning signs. And on the basis of having done this refresher course, they can then make a referral to Prevent and make, that they need to bring in this person for the Prevent programme because they've expressed views. You would normally think that, and this would be a perfectly reasonable view, that if you have somebody who is expressing an ideology with a particular ideology that you would see as a forerunner to committing an act of extremism or an act of terrorism, I should say, then that would be the obvious way to, that would be an obvious cause for concern, and you would make then a police officer or nurse or doctor or whatever would make a referral, teacher even. And the concerning thing about this is that what it appears now to be drawing in is that if you have a concern about immigration, if you have a concern about what you've reported here on GB News day in, day out with the small boats crossings, what you heard from our own Prime Minister, Keir Starmer there, about the country at risk of becoming an island of strangers, if you hear those types of comments, according to this refresher course, then that would be reason to make a referral to Prevent.
So if, for instance, you take that line that a child in school says to their teacher in one of those lessons where they're all discussing things, my mum and dad are going to vote Reform UK because they're worried about mass immigration, and I feel the same way. Is the teacher going to actually feel that they have to put a little sort of mark against that child's name?
Yes.
Because, and the inference being that he's coming from a home that actually might be suspicious.
And this is the concern of Lord Toby Young, who, of course, is General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, and he says, whilst not defined in law nor subject to statutory constraint, the definition in the training course expands the scope of suspicion to include individuals whose views are entirely lawful but politically controversial. And that's a letter that he's written to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, now asking for some clarification.
Now, the Home Office says Prevent this system is not about restricting debate or free speech, but about protecting those susceptible to radicalisation. But this looks like it is attacking free speech, and it'll be noted, won't it, by our allies in the White House. They are concerned about this country's approach
Donald
to
Trump
free speech.
is personally concerned
about
about
this. They see people being arrested for tweets. I do know that the White House has been in touch with Number 10 about that very speech about immigration. It's noticed by the White House. They see finally this country is talking the same language as the Trump White House. This damages that.
And of course, you rightly said just when we were discussing this first hour that the trade deal it's not been completely signed, sealed and delivered. And if Trump personally is very concerned about this, his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is very worried about, JD Vance is very worried about this. They're particularly concerned about the Lucy Connolly case and the length of sentence, 31 months in prison. And they will be looking at this, and that partnership with America is incredibly important. And if they feel that their politics, their brand of politics, is suddenly under the microscope of officialdom within the UK from the Home Office and the British government, then that is not going to go down well. That is not going to sit well with the White House. But more broadly, I think it creates a hornet's nest. Well, not even a hornet's nest. It creates just a sort of such a wide scope for the security services to then start picking up individuals whose views are perfectly legitimate. This is important. It's important that programs like Prevent and Channel, that they work and they're effective, because they are the tools that are used to ensure that we do not have terrorist attacks on the streets of this country. And if they're suddenly inundated with thousands upon thousands of, there may be even some of your viewers here at GB News.
Well, Anne Diamond.
who suddenly... If you voice a concern, if you have a debate about it, that somehow sort of marks you as being suspicious.
And then, of course, and then the knock-on, they talk about teachers. Well, this could go on a child's record. Yeah. And that could be incredibly damaging looking ahead to future employment or training.
It's patently, it seems ridiculous.
They're going to have to put out. I have a feeling that this is a story that I think will, Saturday now, it will go into next week, and I would imagine that they will have to do some sort of.
Normally, once ministers wake up to this, they'll deal with it because it's come from officials. But what I worry about is that how Home Office officials think about us? People concerned about immigration? Is that how they view us? That we could all be terrorists? It's totally ridiculous.
It is concerning, and I think you're right, Chris. I think once this gets across the desk of the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, I imagine we'll see some sort of clarification going into next week, and I'm sure Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, will be raising this. Nigel Farage, no doubt, will as well. So the pendulum will come back the other way. But you raise a valid point. That is this how we are, or many members of the British public are seen who have concerns about immigration.
I mean, I certainly hope, don't you, that our politicians, Kemi Badenoch, as you said, Yvette Cooper, I don't know, are going to be outspoken about this. Will they have the courage to be outspoken about this?
I'd have thought so. I think it clearly offends against freedom of speech, all the things they profess to talk about.
It's freedom of thought as well, because it says belief that mass immigration is a problem. It qualifies you as being...
It creates a boil, it creates resentment. And it's important that when, dealing with this issue, that, the government is seen to be fair and reasonable and just applies some...
Seems to me that there's some kind of a virtue signalling box ticking in the Home Office. But if you're trying to... And people who were trying to keep us safe through Prevent are good people trying to stop the bad guys. This doesn't help them.
And make no mistake about it, having a concern about immigration is one thing, but there is far-right extremism as well. There is far-right terrorism as well, just as there is Islamist terrorism and other forms of terrorism. It's an ideology-driven. And it's really important that our security services are under constant financial pressure, and when they get it wrong, we all see the effects. So they have a clear run to get to those cases that really matter, because it's a fiendishly difficult job.
I can understand if you work in Prevent. You are dealing all the time with people who are seriously problematic and who have horrible views and who may want to cause hurt in some cases. And maybe they just get overwhelmed by that. They see so much of it. And their objectivity falls, doesn't it? But to call love of your country and a belief that we have a cultural, a culture that we want to preserve, to call it cultural nationalism is terribly Orwellian, isn't it? They're making up words that make us sound as though we're all terrorists.
Well, anyway, the Home Office has said this. Now, Prevent is not about restricting debate or free speech, but about protecting those susceptible to radicalisation. I suspect that statement may develop through the day.
Yeah, they need to say more than that, don't they, really? They need to. And do you think Yvette Cooper will do anything about this?
Well,
Or does she believe this
look,
herself?
the Commons is sitting next week, and I'd imagine that this story will, if it's not subject to a statement, then I'm sure an opposition MP is going to ask an urgent question on the floor of the Commons.
So MPs over the top of their newspapers will be
And we'll be raising
their
it
coffee out
Monday morning in the lobby briefing with the Number 10 spokesman.